Hey there, bookkeeping bosses. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Lynn Talbot, the Bookkeepers Coach. And today we're talking about one of my favorite business growth secrets, mentorship. Now, if you've been in business for a while, you know that sometimes you just need someone in your corner, someone who's been there, done that, and can see the things that you can't see. Because you're so deep in the weeds, you're doing your daily work every day. It's hard for you to get out of that and work on your business. That's where a great mentor comes in. We can help you see the big picture. Today, I'm thrilled to have a very special guest and someone who's actually been one of my own mentors, Ronna-Renee Jackson of LaunchPoint Leadership. Ronna-Renee and I have been on nonprofit boards together where I have seen her share her incredible leadership skills. She also works with executives on leadership development. And she just has a gift for helping people in a gentle way see their potential in a whole new light. So in this episode today, we're going to talk about, one, what a mentor can really do for you as a bookkeeping business owner, and two, the difference between training, coaching, and mentoring, and why all three matter. And lastly, how mentorship can give you the confidence you need to raise your prices, improve your leadership skills, and help you make better decisions for your business. So whether you're just starting out or you've been running your firm for years, this conversation is going to show you why you don't have to do it alone. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Ronna-Renee. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your journey into leadership development.
Well, first, Lynn, thank you so much for having me today. I spent over 25 years in corporate America in a lot of ascending roles in leadership. And one of the things that I really learned through that progression is that the old school tried and true ways of developing as a leader and developing leadership skills in others would not work. And I really realized that having a mentor and being an effective mentor was a huge differential in my personal development. So my time in corporate America really guided me towards working in leadership development. And in fact, one of my last roles in corporate America was as an IT leader. And people always said to me, wow, you don't really seem like an IT girl. And I'm like, well, I've never written a line of code in my life, but I know how to develop talent. And so we had a whole lot of IT leaders that had not been developed, frankly, as leaders. I joke around sometimes and say that the way you can really draw somebody out is to tell whether they're looking at their shoes or at your shoes. And so I really made it a mission to bring leadership skills into an IT organization. And I learned a lot from that because that's the first time I worked with a coach. And then now, of course, that's what I do. I coach individuals, executives, teams, and I deliver a lot of corporate training around leadership development and mentoring specifically.
Yes, well, I love that. One of the things we try to do when I'm mentoring and helping and coaching bookkeepers is similar to what you mentioned. They may have the bookkeeping skills, but they've not transitioned into that leadership skills yet or how to manage other people. And so moving from a bookkeeper to owning a bookkeeping company and managing people is a huge step. And that transition is often very difficult for people who haven't had an opportunity to be a leader or to even gain those leadership skills. So for our audience of bookkeepers, many of them who are just starting to build their team, I'm often asked, what is a mentor? Lynn, why would I need a mentor? As an entrepreneur, sometimes we think we know everything. We're like, I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. I can run my own business. I wear all the hats. So tell us what your definition of a mentor is.
Sure. So, that joke that I told about looking at your shoes or looking at somebody else's shoes, I mean, I don't mean it to be offensive, but I come from a long line of engineers. And so even my grandfather always talked about the inherent introversion of some particular fields of work. And I think bookkeeping may be one of those where people tend to be a little more isolated and work independently, or perhaps be more naturally introverted. And being an effective leader does not necessarily mean you are an extrovert. I happen to be, so I have a lot of energy and I get energy from people, but you don't have to have that skill to be an effective leader. So for me, the tipping point and understanding what was a mentor was really saying that mentors have wisdom to share with you, not necessarily skills, because you have the skills. You're running a business. You already know that. But as a business coach now, what I see, the number one reason businesses fail is because the business person, whatever their business is, let's say you're a baker, then, you begin to move away from baking and have to do bookkeeping and accounting and legal and HR. And so you lose the idea of what is your business. So as a bookkeeping business, the same principle can apply. You're an excellent bookkeeper. Are you an excellent developer of talent? Are you an excellent leader for an organization that is growing and may have different needs than how you were as a solopreneur? So understanding where you are helps guide what kind of mentor you need to have. But for me, the definition is really simple, that a mentor is someone who has a little further down the path than you are. So they have wisdom to share, experiences you can learn from. They maybe have tried and true tips and traps for you to avoid that they're able to share with you, like, hey, don't do what I did. Learn from this. Or, hey, here's what I did and it worked really well. So that's really what mentoring is. In a nutshell, it's just someone who is able to share their wisdom with you. And that is really, really valuable as you're growing personally and professionally.
Yes, I love that. I know at some point back in our past lives, you had helped mentor me through some issues I had when I was starting my business, and I'm I'm probably a typical entrepreneur in that I would like to do everything myself. I'm kind of, strong-willed, and I think I don't know what other people could offer me that I couldn't, that I just don't already have that tenacity that I can just, bull through this and get through it, whatever it is, and go on. But a mentor in the way you had helped me is just being able to see what I can't see because I'm in there doing everything and I'm a little bit, busy and I'm in the weeds. I'm trying to get out of the weeds. I know I need to get out of the weeds. As a bookkeeper and an owner of a business, if you spend all your time in the weeds, everybody's looking, everybody needs you, the clients need you, your employees need you, and you can't get out of the weeds to see the big picture of what's really going on. And I think what you helped me realize too, and it's a process, isn't it? It doesn't just happen in like one session, but being able to listen to a mentor and say, okay, I need to develop some leadership skills because if I can't manage a team or get these skills off of me and onto a team that I have trained and trusted, I'm not going to be able to be successful. So I feel like, just like what you said, being able to listen to somebody else, see the big picture and present it to you. And I also like to think of it this way, is that you have to be open to be mentoring. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about when you think people are or aren't ready, or your thoughts on how people open up to be mentored.
Yeah, I think being open and receptive to mentoring is also a skill. But, to your first point, I am capable and I am so tenacious and I can do it. I really say that's a trap that you have to avoid. And I think it is a trap that women in particular fall into because we kind of carry a lot of emotional weight on our shoulders, keeping the house, keeping the family, keeping the job, all these things. And so you fall into this feeling of inadequacy if you let any of those things go. And so learning who and how and when to ask for and accept help is a really big skill and a first step, I say, in a leadership progression journey, because you have to do some sort of an assessment of who am I really, and what am I really good at, and what am I not good at, and how can I go get better? And that's really where a mentor can step in. Mentors may be able to help you with that assessment. I know I use a lot of different tools that I assess clients with to say, kind of, where are you in all of these different things? A lot of self-reflection, because you want your protege or mentee to come to you with a real specific list. Honestly, when somebody says, hey, Ronna-Renee, would you be my mentor? The first question I always ask is, why are you asking me? Because that's going to tell me, what are they really looking for? And sometimes I may be the right fit, and sometimes I may not be the right fit. But again, I would know who to connect them to. And that's another part of mentoring. It's like, if I can't bring it to you, but I can bring someone to you, then that also is effective mentoring. So I think, to answer the second part of your question, like, when do you know you need help? It's when you are reaching a roadblock in any of those areas that, like, I should know this, but I don't, or I'm doing something and it is exponentially harder than it should be, right? I'm really struggling. And so it's taking me a lot longer. It's difficult. I'm not quite sure how to progress to the next step. Those are good indicators that maybe you need a mentor in that area, because when you're firing on all cylinders, as you know, as a successful business owner, things flow, right? You get in a flow, you feel good, it's moving, it's easy. So when you're hitting one of those roadblocks where maybe it's not moving, it's not easy, you're not quite sure what the next step is, that's when you need a mentor.
Yes. And I think for us business owners, especially if it's our first time around, I know this, I have a couple of other businesses. I know my second and third time around, I'm much better at identifying when I need help and when to ask for help, and when I should have expectations that my team should be stepping up to the plate, and they're not. So it is hard, I think, for someone who is just starting out running their business and has not been in a managerial position or a leadership position, to have that skill come naturally, because for a lot of entrepreneurs, the natural way, like you said, is just to do it all yourself. And I call that getting on that hamster wheel. That hamster wheel is so dangerous, because you thrive on the excitement and the adrenaline and the energy, and then the positive feedback you get. Maybe your sales are increasing, but you can't get off that wheel without proper leadership skills. And leadership, it comes from the owner of the business. You can hire somebody to go be your operations manager and try to lead. But I found that with working with other clients as well, if the owner of the business isn't willing to be mentored or learn the leadership skills they need to do, they just expect everybody else to. It's really hard.
Yeah, the owner of the business clearly has the accountability to set the vision and to set the goals and the priorities for the company, large or small. Even if you're a solopreneur like I am, I sit here every year and I say, what are my goals for my company this year? How am I going to achieve those? And, kind of break it down like any business owner would. But then when you start to get into, okay, I'm going to hire somebody now, how do you share that knowledge? How do you share what your goals are, what your priorities are, and how do you equip and empower? Those are two separate things, and they're both equally important on what you do with your staff. Because if you equip them, meaning you give them authority, but you don't empower them to actually do it, they will be frustrated. If you empower them and you don't equip them, you will be frustrated because they don't have the skills to do what you think they should do. And 90% of all of this can be solved with good communication. Here's what I expect. Here's how we're going to do things. Here's how we will resolve conflict, on and on, right? But having a tool book or having a guide to help you figure out how to document those things is how you come back to a success factor, right? So how do you transfer that knowledge? How do you make sure your team all shares the same common goal? That comes down to performance planning, evaluations. How do they know what a success metric is? How are you telling them? How are you equipping them to contribute to the success of the company? How are you empowering them within a box to go and take risk, but know that they're able to do whatever you've asked them to do, whether it's sales or whether it's marketing or whether it's executing on just a bookkeeping book, as could be the case with your clientele. So it's really, how do you take all of those different components and break them down and share expectations across the reality of your company?
And I found with myself personally, struggling with when you talked about empowering and equipping your employees, there is a difference. And I found that sometimes, and I know a lot of a lot of the clients that I've been mentoring to struggle with this, and that this is your company. Nobody's going to love your company as much as you do, or give it 100% as you do. And so you feel like you have to constantly check up on everybody and everything. So you tell your employee, hey, here's your clients, here's the stuff, here's how to do it. We've met with the client, we've gone over it a few times, you're there for them. But then instead of just saying, teaching them and empowering them to do it, you're going back and checking up on them. I know I was bad about this. I would go into the file and I would see something and be like, it's just quicker if I just get in there and fix it. That is not being a good leader, taking those
That's right.
opportunities to step back, have a meeting and saying, hey, you might have missed this, or here's how we, book that loan. You forgot to put the interest in or something like that. But I know for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's easier to just do it. You hire somebody to do it and then you don't let them do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that a lot. And again, it comes back to that point I was making earlier, that your business is your knowledge. And so when you start to stretch outside of that, that's where people struggle, right? Like, oh, okay, I know how to fix this problem. I'll just fix it. But if you do that and you're on that hamster wheel and you're continuously doing that, you are not developing and growing your employee base. So they're not going to get better. They're not going to be able to take on more responsibility. They're not going to be able to recruit and retain new clients on your behalf because they haven't been equipped and empowered. So it's really two sides of a coin, I guess, or a continuum that you have to bridge when you're in that ownership role. And I think that happens a lot. And so I always come back to fundamentals and basics and structure. I mean, I love a good spreadsheet or a template or a way of structuring things. And sometimes I think even with clients as they're starting, they become so overwhelmed of, I don't even know how to structure my day. I don't even know how to have a staff meeting. I don't even know what topics I should be covering at a staff meeting. I don't know what I need to document in an employee file and what I don't need to document, or what's just a conversation. I mean, it becomes so much, and it's like, a light tunnel is zooming by you that you cannot consume all of that information. And so again, a mentor I would say, settle the glitter, like a little snow globe when you shake it and all the glitter's going everywhere. You just need to set it down for a minute and settle the glitter and let people think through one step at a time. And mentors can help calm that. They can calm you down and say, let's prioritize. What are you struggling with the most? How can I help you? Let's build a system. I love systems. I love processes and accountability, because that calms everything down. And now you have a document and process to fall back on, and you're not relying on the emotion of, I think, I feel. You're like, this is our process. We need to follow this process in order to be successful. And now you're checking people's performance against a process instead of your own emotion and response to something. And so that also calms people down. People like structure. I mean, I'm a child of the 60s. I remember we had a little cartoon on my refrigerator growing up, and it said, kids need LSD, love, security, and discipline. And it's the same thing. Like employees need that. They need to feel safe. That's the love. They need security to know your company is going to be around a while and they're still going to have a job. And they need discipline, meaning that they need structure. That doesn't mean, discipline like, oh, you're 1 minute past lunch hour. That's not what I mean. I mean structure around knowing what's expected, when it's expected, how will I be evaluated, and all of those types of tools are things that good leaders bring to the table. But often when you're starting out, you don't know how to get them or where to go. And so a mentor can help guide books to read, templates to use, or just their own innate experience that they can share with you that really helps get your leaders moving in that leadership direction, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I love the real life examples there of, when we are mentoring others. It is amazing as a mentor now that I'm doing that. If just being able to watch somebody, talk to me and tell me all this stuff, and it is just like a glitter globe, and
It
they're all
is.
over the place. And I thought, I was just like that. I was just like that. I was all over the place, but in my head, I thought I was keeping it together. It's sort of like a duck on a water. I'm like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
fine. I'm fine, everybody. I'm doing this great. And yes, I've got clients. I'm, doing stuff. But underwater, I was paddling very, very hard and staying above water. But there's always that feeling of I'm missing something, or I'm not doing something, or one of my clients isn't doing something, or sorry, one of my employees isn't doing something. One of my clients is missing some data. Did I get that tax return, shored up before I filed it? And when you're on that wheel, it's very hard to stop and look at your company objectively and say, I'm doing what I need to be doing as the business owner. So for those of you listening, if you are on that hamster wheel, which we all get there, and you may still be on it, you need to be hiring people and managers. You don't need to be on the hamster wheel. Your full-time job, if you already have employees, is to be hiring, mentoring, training your employees, but also allowing yourself to get some leadership development so that you can do that in a comfortable manner. Because the last thing you want to do is hire a bunch of people, not really treat them great. Like you think you're treating them great, but maybe they're not feeling the love and the security that they need in a job. And they just go off and work for somebody else because you're over here on the hamster wheel, going behind them, changing things and not really telling them. I think that really makes people nervous. And I think that's why employees leave. Employees stay when they know their boss cares about them and is training them and allowing them, to just be themselves, but also allowing them to learn and grow and empowering them. So one of the things I was thinking about with some of the clients that I mentor is, some of the ways that I can help them is like setting better boundaries with their clients, and maybe sometimes setting boundaries with your employees. But often I'll hear, oh, this client, and they'll just go on and on the whole, meeting about how terrible this client or how difficult it is or how much they don't like working for them. And a mentor can look back at that and be like, yeah, you need to drop that client. And that's hard for a business owner to hear. Oh, I worked hard for that client. I went to all of these chamber meetings and I got this big client. Well, you need to set boundaries with them then. So I think that's interesting that, something that a mentor can do is to recognize those patterns and say, you need to set boundaries, or this client might not really fit your profile. And like you said, getting the processes in place. This is my client profile. If these clients don't fit that profile and they're kind of pushing back and we're having a lot of difficulty, we're spending more time than we need to with these particular clients because maybe they don't fit the profile, then the answer is, a mentor would probably tell you, you need to figure out how to get this client off the books.
Yeah, you make a really great point, Lynn. Like we chase the money, right? We chase them. We're so afraid to give up a client because it's revenue. And that is a really slippery slope because you're exactly right. You have to come back to say, does this fit my ideal client profile? And if you don't know what your ideal client profile is, that's a great place to start, because once you really are locked in on who is your ideal client, what demographic are they? What business are they in? I mean, what is it that is appealing to you about that? When you really lock that in, then you're going to attract more clients because your clients are confident that you know who you are. And when you know who you are and you know who they are, then the money comes. But when we start to chase the revenue and the money, that's a slippery slope. And so I would say a mentor would point out that's another trap. That's a trap. Don't go down that. A dollar is not a dollar. It all has to be working for you. And so that's another point of how a mentor can really bring some wisdom into the conversation.
Yes, and we're all guilty of that. I tell this story many times, anybody that would listen, that when I first started my business, I really thought I can help anybody. You've got a QuickBooks problem, I'm the person that can help it. It did not matter what industry they were in, if they could pay me or not pay me. I, for some reason, had this, you know, insight that I was going to help them and I was going to be the hero. And I enjoyed that. There's something empowering about that, saying, oh, I can help you no matter, no matter how bad that file is. But, after a while, I figured out some people aren't going to pay me, or they're not ever going to be happy, no matter how much work I have done. I remember one time giving up an entire Labor Day weekend and working for somebody because they needed to have their taxes done by like the week after that, stopping all my plans and working 30 straight hours through the weekend. And the guy ended up basically saying, I don't like anything you did and I'm not going to pay you, So that was one of the realizations that I was like, well, what am I doing wrong? I'm working, I'm helping, I think that I'm doing a good job with it. But had I just been able to objectively look at that client and say, yeah, your emergency is not really my problem. I can't solve your problem in 2 days. It's a 30 to 40 hour problem, but I tried to do that anyway. But yeah, a mentor can help you see that you do not have to chase all the dollars. Chasing that is bad. When you first start out, I get it. You're taking your clients, and you usually get clients from referrals. That was how 90% of my clients I received was either a CPA or another client would refer. Really didn't have to do a lot of advertising, but it's that getting those first clients. Then you have the opportunity to fine tune those clients, right? Just as we talked about. That's a good opportunity to have a mentor to help you look and say, are these the clients that you want to work with? What's going on? Let's get some processes in place and some plans so that that snow globe can settle down and you can focus on your business instead of working in the business so much. You've got your clients now. Now let's work on the business and on the leadership skills.
No, totally. That's where you're exactly right. Discipline comes in the form of documentation. Do you have good contracts? Are they rock solid? Do you have legal recourse when somebody doesn't pay you, or whatever happens? And good mentors are skilled in all of those areas, and they're able to sit there and say, today we're going to take this little piece of glitter and we're going to put it down. And then maybe the next meeting, you're going to work on a few more pieces of glitter, but eventually they're going to get you to be looking at the picture instead of it being blurred by all the glitter, right? Snow globes have a little picture. And so I like that analogy a lot. I use with clients. Like when you settle the glitter, you can really see the big picture. And that's what has to happen for a business owner. They have to be able to see that picture and move beyond all of that noise that is the glitter that's running across their screens, whatever that is.
Yes. And I know some listeners are probably thinking after listening to this for a little while, well, I don't really need a mentor. Like, I can figure this all out myself. I was one of those people for a long time. I get it. Or I'm not ready yet. I don't have enough clients yet, or I'm not really up against a wall yet. I feel like some business owners may just have like a blind spot that they don't need a mentor or a coach, a trainer. Some people call them trainers, but a coach or a mentor can really come in at that critical time. You don't have to be up against a wall to need or want one. But when I hear somebody say, well, that's too expensive. Why would I pay a mentor, this much money when I can just work harder or I'll figure it out myself. Um, I had to have my eyes opened by that. And there's so much more about running a business, running a bookkeeping company than just managing people's books. You've got to manage all of the processes and you've got to manage your staff. So now that I'm mentoring bookkeepers who are bookkeeping firm owners, it's like I can see the growth opportunities there. I can see that wall they're getting ready to get up to. I can see that, okay, you're going to hit this wall. You're going to hit this spot before they hit it. It seems like I can see that and I can help as a mentor, help say, okay, here's the next step. Here's what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Now that you have 6 employees, this is what's going to happen, and be able to start looking at the processes way before somebody hits that wall.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's the value of a mentor. And, people, I think, let's back up a step just for this fundamental concept of mentoring, because people have in their mind a mentor is this long-term relationship. And, it may be, but there are lots of different types of mentoring. I mean, you may need a mentor like a very specific problem that you just need somebody to help with, or it may be a business leader or advisor or coach that's going to be very long term and all the things in between. So I always say, there's probably about 8 or 9 different types of formal and informal mentoring relationships, each calibrating to different time commitments. So that's part of it too, is to say, well, do I really need a mentor to just tell me all things about my business? That might feel overwhelming. It might be too expensive. But if I just need a mentor to show me how to run an effective staff meeting because I've never done that before. Okay, that's a really quick, that could be like what I call flash mentoring, where in 15 minutes, I can give somebody a template. Hey, here's how you should run a staff meeting. Here's an agenda. Here's the 4 things you need to make sure you have documented in personnel files. I mean, that can be mentoring in a very isolated way, but can really advance somebody's understanding of how they're going to progress in their business. So just like, you look at the big business picture and all the glitter in front of it, just break those little glitter pieces down to one thing at a time and decide, do you need one mentor to solve all those problems? Or do you need one for this particular thing and one for that particular thing? And how would I go about getting them? So I think that that's a big thing to understand too, is that mentoring is not one size fits all, one shape, one constant. It can be a variety of things along the spectrum of time commitment and structure. Some are very structured. If you think about, like in a company setting, a succession plan as an example, that's a very structured, long-term mentor type relationship. But in some small businesses, I might have an immediate problem and I just need flash mentoring. I need to ask you a question and get an answer in a flash so I can go on. So there's lots of different types of mentoring.
Yes, I can see when somebody's having trouble with an employee or they've got a difficult conversation coming up and they just need somebody to talk through that, say, how can I approach this, and give them the words and just some of the wisdom that they need to get through that. And even writing that down, I know one of my mentors would help me, give me talking points to make sure I stayed on track and took the emotion out. We talk often about trying to take the emotion out. That's hard if you are in the weeds and you feel like somebody's, I don't know, you take your business personally. So if something is not working in your business, you sort of tend to take it personally. And so being able to take that out of the mentoring and just saying, here are the facts, here's what's going on, I need to talk to you about something, and figure out how to talk to an employee. But I love that flash mentoring. I think that is very, very helpful. And I've done a lot of that in ways, mostly it's how to teach the bookkeeping owner how to talk to a client In other words, either how to fire a client or how to raise their rates and how to give them the information they need. So it's presented in a way that the client will understand and like and be, receptive to.
Exactly. I mean, the mentoring is a lot of how do you communicate effectively. That's a big part of it.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things I see too is that shift from being a doer, working in your business, to working on your business and being a leader. So working in the business, you've got the skills, you've got the bookkeeping skills. If you own your own bookkeeping company, you've gotten this far, or you're trying to scale your business. Maybe you have 10 or 15 clients and you are thinking about having your first hire or hiring a couple of people. That's when you need a mentor. I mean, your first opportunity to hire a mentor will things change drastically once you start working on your business instead of in the business. And it's not an easy transition for a lot of people. It wasn't an easy transition for me. It did happen. It forcefully happened because I kept hiring people and I had to learn how to work on the business and had to learn leadership skills on the fly. But I'll ask you this: how can having a mentor help somebody make that leap from working in the business? Like you say, the skills, and maybe they're not as outgoing and they haven't had opportunities to be a leader. To how does that transition go from working in the business to working on the business? Any suggestions there?
Well, I think that, you mentioned it earlier about how somebody has to be receptive to being mentored or being coached. So that's the first step, right? If the business owner is willing, they recognize that they need to change and they want to do something different. That's step one. Okay. Then they go and find a mentor of some sort. The mentor is able to look at where they are and then with them set some goals about where they want to be and then how are they going to get there. And the mentor can share their wisdom and their experience and here's how I tried. And if the person truly is receptive, then they're going to take that example, whatever it may be, and be able to fine tune it a little bit to work for them. I mean, this is not a science. It's an art. It's not so much that we're going to say, here's step one, step two, step three, and pour concrete all over that because you will spend the rest of your career chipping away at that concrete. But if you're able to say, here's some things that have worked in the past, how might those things be adapted to fit your personality and your business? A mentor, in my opinion, should not be telling you, here's what you need to do. They should be helping you figure out how do you use your innate skills and talents and gifts to adapt to where you want to be. And so it's an aspirational kind of relationship. And the mentor is helping guide that leadership transition, not necessarily saying, do this, do this, do this, and then voila, you have arrived. It's not going to work like that. And so having that understanding of what's reasonable and how will my personality fit with the mentor's personality and what am I trying to achieve in my business are really important elements of this, relationship that has to be forged. Because if a person is thinking, I'm going to hire a mentor and they're going to tell me what to do and I'm going to do it and then I will be successful. You're chasing something, right? It's if then. And that's not really how it works. It's more relational to be able to build out what do I bring to the table that is uniquely me in my business and how can I do more of that and be able to help others grow within their capabilities. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I think also avoiding burnout. I think as entrepreneurs, you get to a point where you can burn out. It took me 11 and a half years before I started to feel the burnout because I was pretty intense going and growing my business. But what happened was I really wasn't able to take long vacations. I wasn't able to remove myself from the business for a very long time because everyone relied on me. And even though I would try to hire, I had lots of great employees that could do certain things. There were certain things they just couldn't do and that I had not been able to successfully offload onto some of my employees. So avoiding that burnout, I think, is key for entrepreneurs when they're growing and they're trying to figure it all out. And as an entrepreneur, you would never say, "Oh, I'm burned out on my business." You would never say that, but you probably wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats thinking, how am I going to get 24 hours tomorrow? I need to work 24 hours in this schedule tomorrow. How am I going to do that?
Yeah, you're exactly right. That like cortisol buildup, the stress hormone that builds up in us, and trying to have really systematic ways to release that so that you don't have that burnout. I mean, simple things like don't schedule hour-long meetings, schedule 45-minute meetings so that you have the last 15 minutes of every hour. You can, close your eyes and take 5 deep breaths, or you can walk outside for 5 minutes. I mean, if you just plan that in your day and then work your plan, you're going to get more done, not less, because you're going to be more productive, not burned out. And so again, that's where a mentor can help. They can say, tell me about your day. How are you spending your time? And you're like, my hair's on fire and I'm frantic and I got to do this and do this and do this and do that. Let's take a deep breath. Let's do 5 cleansing breaths and make sure that we're ready for our next meeting. And so that you're not just, flying around like crazy. And so that having an intentional break in your day is going to actually increase your productivity, not decrease it, and help you fight that cortisol buildup that happens in all of us. There's tons of neuroscience around this.
Yes. And, I think about, some of my listeners that are probably like, well, yes, Lynn, I don't have time for a mentor. I mean, that's just something else on my plate, right? That they're going to want me to do this or ask me to do this, or just taking an hour to meet with them is going to be more on my plate. So I want to give our listeners some ideas. If you have any of these symptoms, you might be ready for a mentor or a coach. One, we talked about being stuck in a hamster wheel. You're on that treadmill. You can't get off. Another one is you keep running into the same problems. You're running up against something, the same problems, and they're not getting solved like they should if we had processes in place that would handle those situations. So you're getting stuck up against the same problems. Your revenue is staying at one level. You're working and working and working, and you work harder and you get more clients, but your revenue is staying there. And you're thinking, why is my revenue there? I'm working as hard as I can. I've got more employees, but your revenue is stuck at a certain level. Also, if you are the bottleneck in your company, if everything waits for you, and I even find this today, I'll have my marketing person, be like, "Oh, did you have time to review that? I'm still waiting on that." I thought, I'm the bottleneck again. If you are the bottleneck for your company, that is not good. That is another maybe sign that you could be ready for a mentor or coaching, figuring out how to get all of that stuff off of you, or a process that makes it manageable, and then another thing I thought about, or we talked about, you're delegating to somebody to do something, but then you're not letting them do it. What are some other things that you can think of, Ronna, that somebody might be ready for a mentor?
Well, I think everybody needs a mentor. So whether they're ready or not, that's kind of the $1 million question. And maybe it is $1 million, right? It depends on what you want out of your business and how you want to scale. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Lynn, on saying, like, is my revenue flat or stagnant, or am I the bottleneck? That's a great one, because that means there's a process pinch and they're not able to move past you. Or am I feeling constantly overwhelmed and at the risk of burnout? Do I not know how to do something or do it efficiently? Maybe I know how, but it's taking me 10 times longer than it should. So those are all indicators that you might need a mentor. Or conversely, you may say, yeah, I've got this, or like where you are, right? And so you may be a good mentor. I don't know if you can see this. It says, well, a lot of reflection, but it says you might be a good mentor if, and it's just a little booklet that I have for my company, because it talks about, how people are drawn to you because they want to hear what you have to say, or you have a network that you maybe can share with other people. And so I think that's really important as a business owner. How would I even find a mentor? What would I do? How do I go about getting a mentor? That's a question that people ask a lot of times when I'm at either a chamber event or a BNI event or something that people are like, I don't know what those are, and I don't know how to get a mentor. So I think asking around, joining Facebook groups for bookkeepers, or, asking your friends that are maybe other small business owners, or does the SBA maintain a list of people that they would recommend to help small business owners? So you have to first figure out how to tap in to a network of people that have the skills that you need, and then you're able to go and get a mentor for you. So I think finding them is a big challenge.
Yes, finding somebody who is a good match. And yeah, I think that could be hard. And I also like that you mentioned you could have several different mentors. You could have sort of a business coach that just helps you with the streamlining of your business and processes, and then you can have a coach that is more leadership development and a little more giving you mental clarity. I think that's what helped me the most, was giving me just mental clarity of looking at the situation and being able to see it clearer than I could. Well, this has been amazing, Ronna-Renee. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know our listeners are walking away with a better understanding of what mentorship can do for their businesses and what they can do for themselves personally, and why it's worth seeking out. If you want to connect with Ronna-Renee of LaunchPoint Leadership, you can find her on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. I'll have the link in the show notes for you. And for my fellow bookkeepers who are listening, if you have one takeaway from today's conversation, let it be this: you don't have to figure it out all on your own. The right mentor can help you see the blind spots, challenge you to grow, and get you to your goals much faster. If you've enjoyed this episode, click the like button, follow our podcast, leave us a review, and share it with another bookkeeper who might need a little inspiration today. You can always find us at coachingbookkeepers.com. Until next time, keep building the business you love, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Better Bookkeeper Show.